So let's talk about a huge question. What does it really mean to know God? You might think the answer involves some big, grand philosophical proof. But what if it's simpler? What if it's found in something as small as a wrong text message? Let's dive into a story that shows how a tiny mistake can change absolutely everything. I mean, we've all done it, right? Send a text to the wrong number. It's usually just a bit awkward, maybe a little annoying. But for Avraham Ross, the author of the story we're looking at, that simple mistake, well, it wasn't an annoyance. It was the beginning of a total shift in how he looked at faith and life itself. And this quote just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? The biggest changes in our lives, they don't always come with a clap of thunder. Sometimes it's just a quiet, unexpected little nudge. It's all about seeing the guidance in the small stuff. So, okay, let's get into what actually happened. All right, so here's the scene. The author and his wife, they're new to the neighborhood, kind of feeling like they're floating, you know? They're trying out different shuls or synagogues, just hoping to find a community where they click. So one Friday, he texts a neighbor to get the time for prayers. And that one little text, a simple miscommunication, is about to send him down a completely different path. Just think about how this all played out. He rushes out of work, trying to make it to evening prayers, only to show up at the wrong place, and he's 20 minutes early. He could have just left, right? Been frustrated and gone home, but he stays. And because he's there early, he ends up talking with the rabbi of the community. They have this really warm conversation, and that one tiny accidental moment, it changes everything. He finds his spiritual home, a community where he finally feels like he belongs. And this is the beautiful conclusion he came to. It wasn't some huge, dramatic sign. It was just a gentle nudge, a quiet redirection. But you know, this one experience started a much, much deeper question for him, something he really had to wrestle with. Okay, so this is where the story shifts from a nice personal anecdote to a really big philosophical problem. Because that night, that wrong text, it made him look at one of the most basic commandments in Judaism in a whole new way. Now, listen closely to the wording here, because this is the whole thing. The great Jewish philosopher Maimonides, also known as the Rambam, says the number one commandment isn't just to believe in God, it's to know there is a God. For a super logical, rational guy like the author, that one word, know, is a huge problem. And there it is. That's the conflict. How can you know something in the way you know that 1 + 1 = 2, when it's something that by its very nature you can't totally prove with logic? This question basically pushed him right up against a wall. So this sent him down a rabbit hole, really trying to figure out where that wall is. What can our brains, our logic, actually show us? And where does it just stop? Especially when you're talking about the biggest questions of all. And you can really see his dilemma here. On one side, his logic looks at the universe, the stars, nature, the complexity of it all, and says, yeah, there's gotta be a creator. That just makes sense. But on the other side, that same logic hits its limit. It can get him to believe, but it can't give him that 100% undeniable certainty that the word know seems to require. And that's the heart of his struggle right there. He can get to belief, no problem. But the commandment asks for more. It asks for knowledge. So how do you get from one to the other? The answer, the big breakthrough, it didn't come from some new, brilliant argument. It came from a revelation. A realization that maybe he'd been misunderstanding the most important word in the entire equation, the word know. So get this. An explanation from Rabbi Shais Taub points out that the original word the Rambam used, it doesn't just mean to know like a fact in a textbook. It has a much richer meaning. It means to be bound up with something, to have a real lived connection and awareness. It's about a relationship, not just an intellectual proof. And with that new definition, boom. Everything just clicks into place. See, logic isn't the enemy of faith. It's the path that takes you right up to the edge. And that's where this other kind of knowing, this awareness, this connection takes over. They work together. So, with this new lens, how does he see his story now? Well, it allows him to go back to that wrong text moment and see the whole thing in a completely different light. His own story is the perfect example of being bound up with a guiding hand. He had his plan, right? His logical step-by-step evening. But then a series of little mistakes quietly redirected him. He wasn't out there looking for proof of God, but what he found was a sense of purpose and belonging. He felt the connection. So what does this kind of knowing look like in real life? Well, it's less about proof and way more about purpose. It's about feeling a direction without necessarily seeing the director. It's about being aware of the guidance in all the small details. It's about a real connection, not a cold conclusion. So what's the big takeaway here? How do we take this whole idea and actually, use it in our own lives? The author gives us a really simple and direct challenge. It's not about going out and looking for some giant miracle. It's just about paying attention. It's about trying to be aware of those little moments, of quiet guidance, those fortunate mistakes, those unexpected connections. And that's the real question for all of us, isn't it? Maybe it's a wrong turn that makes you run into an old friend, or a delayed flight that helps you avoid a storm. Or, hey, maybe even a wrong text that leads you exactly where you need to be. Where might that gentle guidance be showing up for you? And that's really the whole idea in a nutshell. This journey suggests that maybe the deepest kind of knowing isn't about proving something with perfect logic. Maybe, just maybe, it's about noticing. Noticing the beautiful guided path that you're already on.